Hello and welcome to Stories from the View, a podcast from the Pleasant View Senior Center in East Longmeadow, Massachusetts. On this podcast, we invite East Longmeadow residents and residents of other towns to tell us stories about their lives and events. And today's guest is Paul Hetzel. He's a member of the board of the Springfield Public Forum. And now here's this week's host. It's Ed Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Eric. Good morning, Paul.
Morning, Ed.
You and I met several months ago at a gathering in Springfield where you were displaying and talking about your photography.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like you at some point this morning to talk about that. But at that time, you also mentioned that you were on the board of the Springfield Public Forum, which I had just become aware of maybe a couple of weeks before. And when I heard what it was, I said, oh my gosh, this sounds wonderful. Now, I'm relatively new to the area, so I guess that's why it just wasn't on my radar. But I've talked to some other people who've been around here for a while. They don't know about it. So I thought this would be a great opportunity to help get the word out. So tell us what it is.
Well, it's probably one of the best kept secrets in the area. Next February will be the 90th anniversary of the Springfield Public Forum. And you would think that 90 years in that people would know about it. But you're in the majority, I think, versus the minority. It was started back in the 30s during the Depression. There weren't a lot of other methods like we have nowadays to get the news around. There was basically radio and the newspapers. 90th year next February. We've had a number of remarkable speakers over the year. I began attending the forum probably in the 80s. I moved up here in 1976, early 80s. And then I've been on the board for, 20, 25 years. I was president for a while. And we have strived to bring a thoughtful discussion to come and stimulate the mind and get people thinking about things. We've had some remarkable names over the years, and I'll just read off a few we've had dating back many years. Margaret Mead, Hubert Humphrey, Richard Nixon, Henry Kissinger, Betty Friedan, Julian Bond, Toni Morrison. Who else comes? Isaac Aronoff, Dick Gregory, David Frost, Alex Haley.
Oh my gosh.
Arthur Ashe.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So and then recently, Cory Booker, we really, Shields and Brooks, David Gergen. So it's been a whole spectrum of people from various aspects of life, but names that pretty much most people know. Yet they've come here to Symphony Hall and for free heard this discussion.
So you've got one coming up?
Yep. This coming Thursday, the 11th, Stephen Breyer, the former Supreme Court Justice, he was here once many years ago, and subsequent to that, Judge Sotomayor was here. Which attracted a huge crowd, probably had about 3,000 people for her. So, he is coming on the 11th.
So the venue is?
Symphony Hall in Springfield, 6:30. And it should be interesting. He's given some interesting talks on various news programs, television programs since. And he is a cerebral guy, and it'll be interesting to hear what he has to say, given what's going on with the Supreme Court lately.
And the cost?
Well,
to attend?
It's free. We are the second oldest continuous free public forum in the United States. There's a forum in the eastern part of the state called Ford Hall, which has beat us out by a couple of years. But it's free to the public. Now, no lunch in life is free. We do ask people to become members of the forum. And we try to get some corporate sponsorships, but you can walk in the door free.
So what, to become a member, how much does it cost to be a member?
Anywhere from $25 on up.
Okay.
And depending on the level of donation, you get various options. I think for now, for the Stephen Breyer's talk, if you become a member at a $60 level, you'll get his book as part of your donation.
So how do you decide on speakers, who to invite?
Well, we have a program committee, and we always run the risk of a year ahead of time trying to decide, well, what's hot, what's important. We had a discussion the other day. We certainly want to do something post-election in 24 because depending on which way it goes, it could be some interesting discussion. But we try to think of topics that are important to the community and also names that we think would attract attention. It's become much more expensive to get people to come and speak at the forum. From the outlandish thing, looked into getting a well-known NBA star who is committed to inner cities, et cetera. $250,000, 2 first-class flights, 5-star hotel, but it's become much more expensive. We used to be able to get people on book tour, but that's becoming a way the dodo bird these days. Even there, people want some money to come and talk.
So when you have identified someone, how do you reach out to them?
Well, we have an executive director who does a lot of the footwork. It helps if we have someone on the board who may know someone, that sort of thing. But once we get a list of potentials for the year, then our executive director reaches out to their agent or book publisher, et cetera, and that's how we make the contacts.
Okay. So how many sessions are there each year?
Well,
roughly?
we used to be just in the fall, but sort of like when kids get back from summer vacation, they forget a lot what they learned. We now try to break it up spring and fall.
Okay.
So anywhere from 5 to 6 sessions, depending on a topic's availability and cost.
Okay. How long does this go? Like this coming Thursday? Is it
So it's usually
hour and a half, 2 hours,
about an
or?
hour discussion, followed by a question and answer period. We also we started a number of years ago, something called the Springfield Scholars Program, where we have high school students coming and we'll meet with the speaker before the talk.
Oh, that's great.
And many of the speakers have said that was the best part of the whole thing, because some of the questions that they ask are quite probing. We had one ambassador come, and a young student stood up and asked the question, did you ever make a decision that you realized was wrong? And after a hum, he came forthright and said, but from the mouth of babes, from
Yes.
these young students with a lot of interesting probing questions.
What about local colleges, universities? Do they tend to, are there students that tend to come? To It's hard
Not
to say.
that much. As I said, best known secret known to mankind. We will occasionally, depending on the topic, have some students come, and we do reach out, and we actually have had the cooperation of the multiple colleges in the Valley contribute and sponsor a particular program each year. It doesn't happen every year, but we have some substantial colleges in the area, as you know, and so it's in a way to not only attract their interest, but their students.
Okay. So just from a logistical point of view, I mean, it's at Symphony Hall.
Correct.
Parking?
Parking, we have worked a deal with the Springfield Parking Authority in the past for a $2 parking underneath the bridge. You can also park at MGM for free, but don't. I didn't say that.
I was thinking that.
Right.
It's true, it's true.
So parking has not been a huge problem. Other than if we really have a very well-known speaker and a lot of people come, then all of a sudden there's a rush. But so
Gotcha.
it works out.
Is it recorded?
It is. And if you're a member, you'll be able to see online, or if you happen to be out of town when it happens, you're able to watch it online.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned the basketball player that you didn't name. I mean,
Yeah.
are there any interesting things that have happened with any of the speakers that you might want to talk about or not name them, maybe? Those kinds of things? Or
Well,
things have gone
there's
pretty
always
smoothly?
a snafu. We had a family-friendly event one year, and the speaker's staff set up the flight coming from the Midwest, and unfortunately had them landing at the wrong airport. So it was a lot of frenzied action, but we were able to get the person there. Occasionally we have someone who's gotten sick and someone else has, stepped in. But by and large, we've been pretty lucky that we've been able to pull most things off. We tend to avoid the winter because in the past, before climate change, we might get snowstorms and
Sure.
might just gum up the wax.
Sure. So when they come in, do you meet with them ahead of time in the afternoon? Or
Yeah, if they come by plane and they come into Bradley, we have somebody pick them up.
Oh, okay.
And meet with them. If they stay over, we have them stay over at one of the hotels right adjacent to the Symphony Hall. Yeah.
So after this coming Thursday, with Justice Breyer being there, you have another.
Yes, George Stephanopoulos is coming, I believe, is June 6th. You can go to the Springfield Forum website, and it's going to be talking about decisions that have been made by various presidents in the Situation Room. And I believe he also has a book coming out. So that will be the second program for the quote-unquote spring season.
Okay. And then beyond that, you haven't
Beyond that,
signed anybody
we're
up.
still,
You're
well,
just
we're
thinking
still working
about-
on
Okay.
pretty much for the fall, trying to firm things up. A lot of ideas, but have to
Okay.
get it in concrete.
Okay. And the board, I mean, is that how many people are on the board, and
A
where do they come from?
Maximum of 27.
Whoa.
They come from various aspects in the area. We try to look for maybe weaknesses that we might not have, say something with fundraising or know something about publication or communication. So it's a diverse board, and terms of 3 years.
Okay. So, your photography. I mentioned before
Right.
that when we first met, you were showing some of your photography.
Yeah.
And I'm a photographer, and I don't think I had any of my photos there at the time, but at a previous meeting, I had shown my photos I take on the farm and pictures of the chickens.
Right.
And you had some photos, and a couple, like one of them, I think, had an animal in it. But I think it was a lion. So you talk about where you take your pictures and how you got into photography.
Well, as a kid, I had as most kids did who had a little brownie Kodak, and when my wife and I wound up having 4 children, so I was taking pictures of the kids. But in 1994, I lived out a childhood fantasy and went to Mount Everest.
Whoa.
And so walked for about 3 weeks and had a lot of time to think, and took my camera along, and I was thinking, well, I really sort of enjoy this. Maybe I ought to get serious about it. And when I came home, I was fortunate that on our street in Springfield, I had one of the world's foremost black and white photographers, Jack Holowitz. And I talked to Jack and wound up putting a darkroom in my basement and sort of went from there. My occupation kept me pretty busy, and I didn't have a lot of time to spend in the darkroom. And the kids would chuckle and say, "Dad's in the bat room" on a Saturday when I wasn't on call. But in 2005, when things went digital, it was much easier for me. And actually, much of the world has now shifted from film to digital. And I've become more and more involved in it since I retired. I've spent a significant amount of time in photography. A friend and I ran the High School of Commerce in Springfield. He started a photography club the year before I retired. And for 11 years, we ran the photography club with the High School of Commerce, which was really very gratifying. And then the pandemic came along, and we couldn't get into the school, and things sort of stopped at that point. I belong to a couple of camera association groups in the Valley, exhibit periodically. I have some images going up at the Munson Art Festival, which I have to drop off tomorrow, actually.
Oh, yes, I heard about that.
Yeah, so I have some images that got accepted into that. And I've had a couple of my images accepted to a couple of international magazines. It occupies a lot of my time. I really enjoy it. The software has improved significantly over the years. I haven't done much AI replacing gondolas in canals, but it is very interesting what can get done.
You were recently on, you went to a class of some sort, I think you
I
had
did
said
a photo workshop, yes, in
okay.
Georgia, which was some abandoned places in Georgia. I had done a workshop similar to that in North Dakota a year and a half ago, where it's a group I've been with many times, and one of the principals had a friend who had access to about 25 abandoned farms, houses, factories, etc. So that was really, really interesting.
I can imagine. Yeah, I find that interesting to see photos like that.
You got into some of these houses and it looked like they had just left, clothes still hanging, photographs on the wall.
Wow.
Empty.
Wow.
Yeah,
I think of this building here in East Longmeadow, that factory on, was it Chestnut?
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Across from what the old American saw.
Yeah, right.
Right.
I mean, for a long time, I was thinking, boy, I'd love to go in there and see what that looks like.
I did a photo shoot at Ellis Island a number of years ago, from about 7:30 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon, and we were able to get into parts of Ellis Island that most people can't. A lot of stories there. A lot of stories.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yes. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anything else that we should know about the forum?
Support us. Go to the website. It's really it's a gem in the city, and I think you all would be interested if you became an attendee.
Okay.
As I said, it's free. The second oldest free continuous public forum in the United States.
Well, it had a great venue. I
Yeah.
mean, being there in Symphony Hall.
Right.
So you've got 2 sessions coming up this
Correct.
Thursday,
Yep.
coming next Thursday.
Right. And then
Right.
June
It's
6th.
coming- yeah. And so Justice Breyer and then
George Stephanopoulos.
George
Yeah.
Stephanopoulos. Yes.
Every year we try to work on a family-friendly event.
Mm-hmm.
We had the astronaut, am I blocking? His brother's the senator from Arizona, with us in last fall, and he was up in space for a year. Kelly.
Yeah.
And but we've had the people, the Lego master builders.
Oh, wow.
So the kids have really enjoyed and it brings a younger audience to the forum.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I think that's a great idea. So that would be an afternoon event of
Usually
some
a
sort,
Sunday
right?
afternoon.
Sunday afternoon. Do you ever do the main events on Sunday afternoons, or are they always in the evening?
We've had them mainly in the evenings. We've had some on a weekend. You're running against the Patriots, the Red Sox, World Series.
Yeah.
You have to be careful when you schedule things.
Sure. Yeah. So do you have any family event planned for this year?
We're working on one, but too early
to say.
Right.
Yeah. Good. Well, this has been wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank
So
you for
what is
sharing.
the website for
Oh,
the
good.
Springfield
Good point.
Forum?
Just go to springfieldpublicforum.org,
Okay.
and you will find our website.
Okay.
All the information you need.
And what about some of your photography? Is that available online? Or
I have
anything, or-
a website. Someone asked me, do you ever sell anything? I said, well, if I sell a picture a year, it's cause for a national celebration. The website is o3photography.com. And people say, well, how'd you get 03? I was in a medical practice with 23 docs, and it was easier for the business office to keep track of us by numbers. So I was 03, so it just was easy.
I wondered about that when I saw your card.
Right. o3photography.com will show you my images.
So you're going to be on display in Munson?
Yeah,
at
I
the
have
Arts
3
Festival.
images that will be
Okay.
on display there.
Okay, yeah. I'll have to, I heard about that. That's coming up in the next month or so, I
Right.
believe.
Yeah.
Good. Okay. Well, thank you.
That's but my pleasure. Thank
All
you.
right. Well, that wraps up another episode of Stories from the View. We'd like to thank our guest, Paul Hetzel, for being here today. The Stories from the View podcast is available on the LCAT 01028 channel on YouTube and on Spotify. If you have a story that you'd like to share on the program, contact Pleasant View Senior Center Director Aaron Kobler by stopping by the Pleasant View Senior Center or by calling Aaron, 413-525-5436, extension 1401, or you can send Aaron an email at aaron.kobler@eastlongmeadowma.gov. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Stories from the View.